to a New World of Work. We're going to wait a couple more minutes. It's just at the top of the hour now, so we'll give a few more minutes, maybe two, to get some additional people logged in and ready to go. So please be patient, and we'll be right back. All right, everyone, I think we're ready to get started. Again, this is Dave Putt with DCR Workforce, and today's webinar is on the state of contingent workforce management, adapting to a new world of work. It's conducted by Chris Dwyer. We'll introduce him in a minute. A few housekeeping items before we get started. First of all, you don't have to try and digest or copy the slides as we go. We're going to send a copy out to everybody on the webinar today. So if you have questions about the material that's presented on the slide, don't worry, you'll get a copy of it. Second, there's also a copy of the study by Ardent Partners on technology innovation on our website, and you can visit DCR Workforce and download a copy of that. Some of that material will be in today's presentation as well. Chris, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Just a quick commercial on DCR for those of you who aren't familiar with us. We're an up-and-coming player in the VMS technology world. We've been around since 2000, but just in 2012 commercialized and launched our VMS platform called SmartTrack. If you're not familiar with it, it's a rather robust tool, multi-tenant SaaS platform, global in nature, multi-platform, including tablets, phones, easily integrated and intuitive in its presentation. For those of you who'd like to get a closer look at our technology, please reach out to me after the webinar, or simply just go to our website and take a look there, and you can register to get our material there. I'd like to go ahead and introduce Chris. For those of you who aren't familiar with Chris, I've known him for a number of years, going back to his days at Aberdeen, but he's a recognized expert in spend management and especially in the contingent labor workforce world, a thought leader and an analyst for many years, benchmarked thousands of companies along the way, and really an expert in this space. So without too much further ado, I'd like to introduce Chris and let him go through the material today. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A box on your WebEx, and I will either have him respond during the course of the webinar, or we'll catch them all at the end. Again, thanks again, and Chris, take it away.
Dave, thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to log in today and spend their very valuable time with us. I know it's if you're in New England like me, it's a beautiful day. So if you're avoiding the great outdoors for your lunch hour and spending with us, we do appreciate it. I do want to thank DCR Workforce and the team over there for sponsoring today's webcast and hosting it as well. We're really excited. This is essentially a sort of a world premiere of the findings from the new State of Contingent Workforce Management Study, which some of you may have already read, and of course may have read in the past. We are on our 4th annual edition. Before we dive too much further into the content for today, I do want to invite everyone to listen to my brand new podcast. It's called Contingent Workforce Weekly. We launched it back in late May of this year, and really, I really felt at the end of the day that our industry really needed a true weekly podcast. I mean, I know there are a lot of podcasts out there on the human capital world, talent acquisition, talent management, even the future of work. But as far as the contingent workforce space goes, this really is the first true weekly podcast that's exclusively focused on the non-employee workforce space and everything that's linked to that space, including the gig economy and the future of work. So feel free to visit tiny.tc/CWW podcast to listen. It goes up live every Wednesday morning, and definitely take a moment if you have to subscribe on either iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. So really the whole theme of today's webcast is discussing this brand new research study called The State of Contingent Workforce Management, and we just published it about a week or so ago. As Dave had said, definitely if you haven't read it yet or downloaded it, definitely visit DCR's website to do so. It is the 4th annual edition of this very critical research study. As David said during the introduction, I've been an analyst for a very long time. I've spent a lot of time in this space, and I've written a hell of a lot of research on the evolution of the contingent workforce and the non-employee workforce. And it was upon joining Ardent Partners back in early 2013 that we started this annual State of Contingent Workforce Management Research Report, which, of course, has really become one of the very few guidebooks in the industry for procurement, IT, finance, HR, talent acquisition, human capital, as well for really understanding the key market trends that are happening in the space today, highlighting the evolution of the contingent workforce, discussing the impact of technology, digging into what the best-in-class companies are doing, and then, of course, presenting some type of framework and overview of strategies, capabilities, and recommendations for everyone to go back to their organizations and implement those to enhance their contingent workforce programs. And like I said, this is the 4th annual edition of this study. We had nearly 300 people partake in our annual research survey, which went live over the summer. Some great insights from a wide range of industries, company sizes, and also regions across the world. I think we had 35 or 40% representation from companies outside of North America, which was fantastic. And like I said, too, there's not just a procurement influence on this research study. We also had a large number of responses from HR specifically, as well as IT and finance and operations. So really, before we dive too much further, I do want to give a very quick background into why we highlighted this report, the adaptation or adapting to a new world of work. This report I put together because I wanted to sort of put the flag on the ground from the analyst perspective on what the gig economy, what the new world of work means for today's procurement, HR, and other types of professionals. There's a lot of media, there's a lot of information out there about the gig economy and how it's really transforming how work is addressed and how work is managed at the average organization. So I thought really this was the perfect outlet for me as a longtime industry analyst to be able to put some context around how companies who are living out there now can truly adapt to this new world of work and what they can do in the months and years ahead to ensure that they're making the most out of the evolution of non-employee talent. So we really highlight the true impact of the gig economy, what it means for organizations today. We highlight what the evolution really means for organizations and how they can really embrace it and make it more of an advantage than anything else. I think that there are still too many business professionals out there that they look at what's happening out in the space, they see the realm of on-demand talent, they see what the gig economy is doing for how companies are transforming their talent engagement, and it could be a fear thing, it could be just a pride thing as well, but too many business professionals and executive leaders have really not bought into what's happening out there. And in a world where talent is a pure competitive differentiator, they're doing a great disservice to their own organizations. And like I said as well, adaptation really is the core theme of this research study, and every single finding here today has been taken from this report, and we're going to illuminate, pretty much every corner of the research report here for you today. So without further ado, I really want to dive into the research findings at hand. As Dave had said, the Q&A box is open. If there's anything that we're discussing here right now that you need clarification on, I've given Dave full permission to interrupt me at any point throughout the course of the next 45 minutes or so. So definitely raise your hand or pop a question into that Q&A box and let us know. And two, if there's just a general question at all about the direction of the research or something we're not clarifying, you need more context, we are going to take the bulk of Q&A questions from the audience at the end of the webcast. So I really feel that the gig economy at the end of the day is a catalyst. It's not it's not necessarily the number one driving force out there, but it is a true catalyst for business transformation. And when we look at the evolution of today's contingent workforce, we look at the evolution of talent and how engagement has progressed, and how everyone here in attendance today, I'm sure, has experienced some level of evolution within their own contingent workforce programs. The gig economy is a true catalyst. It's pushing things forward. It's causing evolution to happen at a faster rate. And one great quote from the report that it's probably my favorite, and that is, if 2015 was the tipping point for the contingent workforce's growth and evolution, then 2016 is the year that the gig economy propels it to new heights. And the reason why I feel very passionate about this statement is that, we're living in a world now where 38% of the average company's workforce is considered non-employee in some way. So what does that mean? That means that 30% of your workforce as an organization is comprised of temporary workers sourced via staffing suppliers and vendors, the more traditional route of staffing org. It's either freelancers, it's independent contractors, it's gig workers, or it's professional services. And that's a big chunk. Now we're past the, hey, it's a quarter of our workforce, it's a third of our workforce. We're getting closer and closer to the day where 45 to 50% of the world's average workforce is considered non-employee. And that, my friends, is really just pushing the buttons for transformation and evolution, because, again, the real idea here is that the gig economy is a catalyst. It's something that is it's sparking new innovation, it's sparking new thinking and transformative mindsets within the corporate world. And over the past couple of years, we've seen so much evolution and growth for the contingent workforce. I mean, I think when I joined Ardent, we had maybe just crossed or coming to that 30% barrier. Last year, I think it was 35% of the average workforce was considered non-employee. Today, it's 38%. So last year, I really felt was that tipping point. I think we're getting into a new era where the contingent or non-employee workforce had social ramifications, political, economic, personal, and business ramifications. We're not talking about another category of spend anymore. We are talking about something that is a true transformative force. And that is really the reason why I feel that the new world of work is here. I mean, at your organization, and I'm sure that there are still, a ton of very traditional legacy approaches that you're taking to address work, but that's changing. There is a true changing of the guard when it comes to how talent is engaged, it's sourced, it's found, and it's ultimately managed and integrated into your organization. And that comes in the form of really at the forefront of addressing work. This new world of work entails utilizing new sources of talent when a new requirement, a project, initiative, or a need comes up within your organization. It's no longer a question of let's address it with someone already in-house. It's a question of who do we have in our broad-based talent pool, whether it's someone we've worked with in the past on a freelancer, on a freelance engagement, it's someone that we know via a personal means, via something like LinkedIn or a social network. Is it someone that's part of a job board or an internal-based talent pool? Is it a professional service, or is it just someone in my own personal network that can come in and address this need? And that really, I think, is a spark for figuring out what this new world of work actually is. It's the idea, and this is, I think, what our definition of the future of work is really based on. It's the idea that any need within your enterprise today can be addressed via non-employee means, whether whatever the role is, whatever the expertise, whatever the skill set required, you can find that talent in an on-demand manner, whether that's inside your organization or outside. And that is where we feel at Ardent, and I feel as an analyst, that's the true future of work. So one thing that I want to talk about is sort of not necessarily wrapping a bow on the idea of the changing world of work, but putting a little bit more context behind it, is that I think there are 5 main ideas. And the first one is the fact that there's so much innovation happening on the engagement side. When you think of how talent can be sourced nowadays, you have multiple means. You're not looking at, well, we need to put a requisition together, and that needs to go out to, our, preferred suppliers. That's still a core, critical part of what we're doing. Never let it be said that staffing suppliers are going to die tomorrow or completely fade away. They're always going to play a very critical role in the talent supply chain, but there is innovation happening, and that really is being transformed. I can dial up talent on my mobile device. I can tap into my LinkedIn network. I can utilize social media and social networks to find new sources of talent and new workers. I can use a freelancer or job board. I can use an online talent platform. I can leverage things like gamification or other innovative concepts to find the talent that I need or we need as an organization. Is transformative thinking. I mean, I think that as much cool stuff is happening, on the innovation side and the technology side, it's also the actual thinking and the mindset that help organizations move forward in this new world of work. It's those organizations that embrace the gig economy. They understand that more and more business professionals are building their 40, 50, 60-hour weeks from multiple gigs or multiple engagements, and they've adopted the flexible working lifestyle. It's in that executive boardroom. It's in those meetings between the COO and the director of HR, having the chief procurement officer, stroll into a talent acquisition meeting. It's those meetings and those conversations that are really transforming the way enterprises think about their talent, where it's not a very simple question anymore as to, all right, well, we either have someone in-house or we go to a staffing supplier. It's more of we have many different means of talent, many different sources that are all available in on-demand, real-time manner. And with that transformative thinking, again, that's a big piece here, the idea that at the end of the day, we are embracing the evolution. We understand that as an enterprise, the best talent out there isn't necessarily going to be available via traditional means. That type of transformative thinking is incredibly, incredibly critical. The third piece here is mobile optimization. The idea that work today is optimized from the mobile standpoint, that everything from gaining visibility into projects to managing projects to tapping into talent networks. I've been saying for months now that enterprises today are sitting on a gold mine of talent via their smartphones, the same phones that they use to order a pizza or watch a video on YouTube or check the score of the World Series game on their ESPN app. That same on-demand content is the same way that you can dial up talent, and mobile is optimizing not only the engagement but also how work is managed, how business executives and business leaders tap into intelligence and knowledge and understand what's happening within an organization. And that's huge. I mean, one common thread between us all, no matter what industry we're in, is that we're all linked to smartphones and tablets. And that's a huge advantage for companies that are letting mobility optimize the way they handle work. And one other item, the blended workforce. I mean, I've been using this phrase for about 5 years now. When you start to get beyond the, hey, this is just 20% or 25% of our workforce, and you're starting to get closer and closer to the day where it's you know, a 45-55 split between contingent and full-time equivalents, you are working with a blended workforce now. There are workers across your organization. There could be someone sitting, you know, and 3 cubes back from you, or on the floor above you, or in another location of your business that's there on a contract or contingent basis. And you know what? They're not just there for their own, I'm sure they are there for their personal gain. Everybody works for, for gaining personal advantage. But from a skill set and a business standpoint, we're all working together. And that's sort of the other side of the coin to the blended workforce. Yeah, we're living in a world where nearly 40% of our workforce is considered non-employee. The other side of that is that we're all working together towards common goals for the organization, and that really that's what a blended workforce actually is. And then finally, core contingent workforce management technology sits in this new ecosystem of platforms. I mean, think of the way VMS, vendor management system technology, has evolved over the years. Think about online talent platforms. Think about compliance and risk mitigation software and technology and services. Think of the integration of VMS with, human resources information systems and talent acquisition platforms, RPO, and then getting to the spend and financial side, ERP and spend management. At the end of the day, it's the core contingent workforce management technology like VMS that sits in the middle of all this and serves as sort of a source of truth or a source of knowledge. So you sort of put all that together and you have the changing world of work. So, it's funny, we're about 22, 23 minutes into the webinar and I haven't shared a shred of data. So we're going to change that right now. Actually, I'm lying because we did share one very critical element. 38% of today's total workforce is considered non-employee. That was one of the big findings from the report. Now we're going to get into, some of the great research findings that we collected and published. So I talked about adaptation. I talked about that the core theme of this year's research study was adapting to this new world of work. Well, and you may be thinking, that's great, Chris. We all have to adapt in changing business environment, not just on the talent or work side. Show us how or tell us how companies are adapting. And this really was one of the showpiece set of findings, that the majority of organizations today are really rethinking how enterprise work is addressed. And that, I think, is really the most critical piece, because we are all stubborn in some way. The best business leaders, the most successful executives at our organizations are at some level a little bit stubborn. I think being stubborn is part of a great leader's ability to not get swept up in hype or on business buzzwords or fads that'll never really plan out. But I think that there's a different air to the gig economy, to the changing world of work, where these business leaders, and keep in mind, these are CPOs, these are talent acquisition directors, these are chief human resources officers, these are COOs and CEOs and other types of director and VP level roles that participate in this research study, rethinking how enterprise work is addressed. I mean, think of everything from from very simple projects all the way up to huge critical endeavors that you need very valuable talent or top-tier skill sets and high-quality skill sets and talent and workers. Just knowing at the end of the day that at the enterprise level, at that very deep executive level, we're rethinking how all of that is addressed. That is the most important piece. And then there are other pieces as well. I mean, the idea of on-demand real-time talent, I mean, I've said it for a while, but you hear the phrase future of work a lot. Well, on-demand talent is the center of that future of work. The fact that I can dial up talent in seconds or minutes, the same way that right now on my phone I can call Uber to come pick me up at my home office. I can find someone that can come into my organization or can work remotely or virtually on a certain project and do a fantastic job and really contribute to my business. So on-demand and real-time talent sources, by embracing those, organizations are adapting to this new world of work. And then as well, the direct relationship with talent. And like I said, I think it's very bold to go out in public like this and say, hey, you know, staffing suppliers aren't going to exist in a couple of years, or they're just going to go away tomorrow. That's not going to happen. I mean, I imagine there's probably a good number of global organizations here that probably pump millions and millions and millions of dollars into staffing suppliers on a yearly basis. That money is just not going to, you know, just all of a sudden be rerouted to the online talent platforms or freelancer networks. But you're going to see more and more of that spend to go through, you know, other sources of talent and online talent and digital staffing platforms. And all for what? For the idea that as an executive, as a business leader, as a line of business owner, I want to have a direct relationship with my talent. I want to be able to control who I'm sourcing, who I'm engaging, who I'm bringing into the organization. And as more and more business leaders strive for this direct relationship with their talent, you're going to see them embracing more and more some of the newer on-demand real-time sources of talent that are out there. So talking about talent engagement, how are companies today really transforming the art of engaging workers and talent and other types of workers? Well, again, it all goes back to you know, to the path of innovation, the outlets of innovation, online talent, mobile, social. Those are the newer sources of talent that are popping up, that are allowing organizations to really mix up how they find the people that they need to bring into their organizations. And again, you know, I had those 5 pillars of a changing world of work. I mean, they're all here. I mean, engagement, innovation, mobility, you know, transformative mindset. There are new ways to discover new talent out there that can help your organization. Again, think about it. I always say talent is the #1 differentiator between one organization to the next. And if you don't have the right talent at your organization, your products aren't going to be up to standards, and they're not going to be able to surpass your competitors, and you're not going to be able to grow and develop your business. So it's very interesting to see that when it comes to transforming talent engagement, the online staffing or online talent, digital staffing, mobility, social networks, and social media really rise to the top as a way to discover new talent. And then, you know, a few other items here. Increasing the hiring of senior candidates, and if you go on Twitter and you follow things like you follow the HR hashtag, or you follow talent acquisition or workforce management hashtags, you see a lot of talk about the aging workforce. And you know, we are a multi-generational workforce. So there are senior level roles. There are there are Gen Xers out there. There are millennials, which is another item you see here. And then you have another generation coming up that's that'll be in the workforce pretty shortly. So it's interesting to note that more and more senior candidates. I mean, again, think of if you're online today and you are one of these senior candidates that you're not quite fully retired, but you're not you're not working on a full-time manner. The older you are, the more experience you have. And if you've been in an industry for a very, very long time, you have a lot of value to the organizations out there, to the businesses out there that can tap into your talent on a contract basis. And that's just another means for companies in transforming engagement of their talent. Millennials, of course, are, sort of the hot topic of the day. Everyone talks about millennials because they are, probably the biggest generation in today's workforce. And in full disclosure, even though mentally I don't feel like a millennial, I am part of that generation as well. And more and more organizations, you know, are really trying to figure out a way to tap into millennials. And one item that that my research study found that we that really not a big part of today's webcast, or even the State of Contingent Workforce report, was that there are different ways to target millennials and utilize them as a source of knowledge and a source of expertise and talent. And there's this whole other set of capabilities and strategies for ensuring that companies are doing everything they can to become attractive to millennials. And then as well, agile talent. This is a phrase that's starting to pop up a little bit more. I consider agile talent to be on the same wavelength as freelancers and contractors and services. But the difference between agile talent and your run-of-the-mill freelancers or services, your professional services, is that agile talent is consistently coming in and out of the organization. They're there on a recurring basis. They're contributing to very critical enterprise goals and objectives, and that constitutes a different way of engaging them and managing them on the back end. So this is another very interesting set of findings here called the talent experience. So, you know, years and years and years ago, and it's still like this really on the full-time side, the more traditional worker side, where at the end of the day, it's not necessarily a war for talent, but it's the war to find work. And obviously, we've been starting to see a shift in that over the past 4 or 5 years, where organizations are starting to think a little bit differently. Again, it all goes back to that transformative mindset that you have to do everything you can as a business, as an enterprise, to become attractive, to become alluring to the high-quality talent out there. So we asked a very interesting set of questions around the talent experience. So what are companies doing to improve the actual experience by the non-employee workers that are coming in and out of their organization? So what are they doing from, you know, from a tactical sense? What are they doing from a cultural standpoint? What are they doing from a mentorship or leadership standpoint? And you see some interesting stats here. You know, doing things like improving visibility into financial processes. The most annoying thing of being a freelancer is not understanding, you know, when am I getting paid, or I reached this milestone in this project, it's released a certain amount of funds, why isn't that happening? So more and more organizations are starting to think about, well, let's give them more status updates. Let's keep them in the loop on you know, when payment is released and when they can expect it. And really, this is a complete 180 here. The corporate culture. I mean, I think that for years and years and years, non-employee workers, not necessarily necessarily saying that they weren't treated well, but there is sort of that dichotomy between, well, I'm here and I've been a part of this organization for a really long time, and you're going to be gone in 2 weeks, so who really cares about you? Well, that's changing, and you know, when you live in this truly blended workforce, it's imperative that more and more organizations create a corporate culture that embraces these types of workers and welcomes them with open arms. And you know, in the State of Contingent Workforce report, one of my favorite aspects, and it's not included in the webinar today, so you definitely have to read the report, is that we put together an infographic based around our definition of the future of work. And one of the items was blended workforce, shared objectives. And that's really what it means, creating a culture where we all work together and we embrace and respect each other. Onboarding and offboarding, making life easy for freelancers or contractors or temporary workers, that always goes goes a long way. And then finally, providing better access to leaders. I mean, I think that obviously there's a line you don't cross when you're utilizing a freelancer or a contractor for compliance sake. But you do want to provide access to leaders for clarification on projects, for ultimate guidance on the things that they're working on. So very interesting set of findings here about the talent experience. And again, like honestly, I do a mental shift back to you know, 2010, 2011. I would have never thought that, you know, we'd be putting together a set of findings like this. So again, a lot of excitement that's happening in the industry today, and that really all goes back to the evolution of the non-employee workforce. So, you know, what better way to talk about evolution to dive into our next section here. So, now getting down to the contingent workforce program level, I think it's really important nowadays for companies to really understand what are the attributes that are vital to your success. You know, at the end of the day, what goes into your program? What does your program need to ultimately be successful? And there's a wide range of items here, ranging from compliance and just, we talked about the transformative mindset. That executive buy-in and support for embarking or utilizing new sources of talent or transforming talent engagement, that's huge. That goes a really long way. And you see here, there are three other items. One is the speed in which talent is engaged and brought into the organization. All goes back to the idea of on-demand. On-demand labor, on-demand talent is the core of the future of work. It's why the gig economy has become such a force today, is that in a matter of minutes, we can find the talent we need at the price that we want, for the length that we desire, and we can also use, whether it's a custom algorithm or it's some type of matching, attribute matching system where we can figure out the talent that's the best fit for organization. So it all goes down to speed, and that's really become the #1 attribute that's ultimately responsible for the success of your program. And then technology that supports a variety of needs. I don't think any organization today can truly be successful without some level of contingent workforce technology. When you have a workforce that is such a big part of your organization today, that sits across the organization in so many different projects and initiatives, that has huge spend ramifications, that is so critical from a compliance standpoint, and it's only going to continue to grow and evolve, you need an ultimate source of truth, or an ultimate source of knowledge and information and intelligence, and that's where platforms like VMS really fit into and support the ultimate success of a contingent workforce management program. And then on the collaboration side as well, I know we've made this a lot about sort of the transformative thinking and technology and innovation, but collaboration and strategy also play a pretty critical role as well when you think about the relative importance of convergence. The convergence between procurement and HR, probably the most important when it comes to contingent workforce management today. Organizations are not going to be able to manage all of their talent in a standardized or centralized manner. And you may, for those of you who follow my research, you may know that that's the core of what we call total workforce management. Without the cross-functional coordination between procurement and HR or human capital management. And this real notion of total workforce management, and believe me, if we had another hour today, we'd be able to dive into what total workforce management is and why it will be so important to the next 3 to 5 years of contingent workforce management, is the reason that organizations are starting to think about the fact that all of our talent, no matter where it's found, where it sits, where it's sourced, needs to be managed under one program. And that's what total workforce management is. And if you do subscribe to my podcast, that's what today's episode is all about. Is this idea of total workforce management, also known as total talent management. That's also a phrase that's been used. But collaboration is probably that first very strategic means of getting that type of program off the ground. So talking about challenges, shifting away a little bit here, and I'm sure that I could pick someone at random here today, and you could say, well, yeah, these are all these are all big challenges for me, but number one maybe just in talent engagement, or number one, especially if you're in procurement, you're running your CWM program, it could be reduced cost or improving spend management on non-employee talent. But really, the most common thread here, as found by the research, is that the need to improve or enhance compliance really is the biggest challenge today. And I really think that this is the byproduct of the idea that today's contingent workforce, today's non-employee workforce, it's continuing to grow. It continues to evolve. Its impact, of course, is going to grow and be enhanced in the years ahead. And compliance really becomes critically important when 35 to 40% of your workforce is comprised of non-employee labor. So interesting to see that come out on top, and again, a pure reflection of just the growth of the industry. And then, of course, visibility and intelligence. We're going to talk about analytics in just a couple minutes here, but really the idea that we're living in a big data world. We're living in the age of intelligence where, you as a business leader, you as an executive or as a business professional, pretty much everything you do is going to be founded on some level of data or information. And the growing, expanding, evolving non-employee workforce, you're not going to be able to manage that workforce effectively or even forecast out or budget or plan for the future from a talent perspective if you don't have information and intelligence today. So I think that's why you see that become such a big challenge for organizations today. So one of the items that I had birthed a long time ago, probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, was the idea of a technology ecosystem that is part of our contingent workforce world. And the idea here, and I talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the webcast, was you sit, core contingent workforce technology like VMS sits in the center. I mean, when you think of what is the #1 platform, you're going to see why for companies who manage contingent labor or have a contingent workforce management program, VMS usually sits on top as that top solution in use. But because the non-employee workforce has just evolved so much, it's grown so much, and it's touching other parts of the business, and because you're dealing with people and talent, it's not always the easiest thing in the world to avoid some of the other supporting, or I call them peripheral solutions, that add a little bit more value or extended value, to the core of your program. Things like online talent platforms integrating with VMS, independent contractor engagement solutions, or even outsourced compliance management. Having those types of platforms and services that help you manage the #1 challenge today in contingent workforce management. Compliance, of course. Again, you're dealing with people. You're dealing with a space that more and more is getting more and more involvement from the HR, the human capital side. Well, things like recruitment process outsourcing, talent ACRA management, and background screening, video screening, background checks, things like that, becoming a critical part of this ecosystem. And then finally, for all my friends here today in finance and procurement, you're still dealing with a hell of a lot of money. I mean, that's really it. I mean, millions and millions of dollars per year being spent on non-employee talent, and obviously you need some link to spend management or your ERP as well. So it really creates this nice ecosystem that that really contributes to the technology realm within contingent workforce management today. So before we wrap up with some questions from the audience and some recommendations for action for everyone to take home today, I want to talk really quickly about the best in class. So if you've been following the research for some time, you know that the best in class really is the way that that we at Ardent place our survey respondents in a nice, neat bucket based on performance. So the best-in-class organizations are typically the top 25% of performers, and all others are the other 75%. And the way that we come to those conclusions are based on a series of performance metrics. So what you see here is sort of an overview of what the best-in-class looks like as compared to everyone else. And what's really interesting today as compared to even 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, even a decade ago, is the realm of performance, the scope of performance that's part of contingent workforce management today. And the number one determinant that we used this year was visibility and intelligence, and combine that with engagement, with quality, with compliance, and also cost savings, because I know that's still very important. But best-in-class organizations, 86% of their non-employee labor and talent is actively and actually accounted for in any type of forecasting, corporate budgeting, or planning, or enterprise forecasting in some way. To me, that is the purest form of visibility, is that we know who our talent is, where they are, what they're working on, how much it costs, how compliant we are, and what that's going to look like in the future. And then you sort of mix that in a little bit here with the quality of talent. There's two quality-based metrics here. Percentage of non-employee talent that completes projects on time and on budget, again, shows how good you are at understanding the best fit talent for your organization. And then there's something called the Quality Index Score, which is something that I designed way back in 2013, which is sort of an amalgamation of various performance metrics from, the number of SOW-based projects and services that hit milestones and delivery dates, the percentage of temporary workers that, you would rehire in the future, percentage of independent contractors that hit all of their goals and objectives, and you sort of mix them all together and you have a 1 to 10 scale. So out of a 10, best-in-class companies score an 8.8. And then, of course, compliance is a very critical item here. You see they have a huge advantage over everyone else. And, of course, you can't talk about performance without talking about cost savings as well. Cost savings are still very critical to the best-in-class program. So over the next handful of slides, I'm going to give you guys sort of a quick peek behind the best-in-class program, and it's fit into technology, intelligence, and the first slide here, general capabilities, sort of the general capabilities and competencies that go into your program. And the first thing you see here is standardization as standardized day-to-day operations for contingent workforce management. Seems very simple on the surface, but the fact that all others group, only a little over half are standardizing their everyday processes. So these are things like just, how someone comes to the organization, how we find talent, how we engage it, how we engage that talent, how is it integrated into different various projects, who's involved from a management standpoint, who is offboarding these workers. I mean, everything goes into that standardized operations bucket. Data security has become huge, and I've written a little bit about this over the years. There's so much transactional data in your system, in your program, that data security becomes very, very critical. And, it's not just the, financial transactional data. It's also, intellectual property. Tons of freelancers and independent contractors are working on, design and marketing and general branding projects for your organization. How can you ensure that that information and that type of work stays with you and doesn't walk away, so to speak? Globalization, of course, and you can see here I'm just sort of cherry picking in the spirit of time. Globalization has become very important for the best-in-class today, and the number one reason why is because it's really a stubborn way of thinking to think that the talent you need is only going to be in your backyard. It's only going to be in your region. That's very critical today to understand that, hey, the talent I need here, I'm based in Boston, it's not always going to be in New England. It's not always going to be in New York or Washington, D.C., or even, in Chicago or Cleveland. It could be on the other side of the world. And if I don't have the proper expertise in understanding, the various tax codes and labor laws and how things, and from a cultural standpoint, how things are in other regions across the world, I'm not going to be able to expand my program to new global regions. And then gamification as well. I would love to be able to talk a lot more about gamification, but really this is one of the hottest components of contingent workforce management today, bringing in some of those gaming aspects into how you find talent and how that talent gets engaged with you. It's one of the more exciting, more innovative concepts in contingent workforce management. Visibility, one of the prime challenges today. We talked about how intelligence is really the true barometer of performance for best-in-class companies in the Ardent Partners research study. And you see here that best-in-class companies have really embraced, the depth of their analytics and reporting capabilities, being able to forecast the future utilization of their talent. We're going to have a gap in 6 months or a year. Do we know that someone's going to retire or someone's going out on some type of leave, or we know that this worker that's done a fantastic job is only under contract for 3 more months, and we don't think we're going to be able to retain them? Are we able to forecast out into the future to make better business decisions today? Real-time visibility, you see that's very prevalent here in this slide. Do we have visibility right now into what's happening? That is probably the most critical aspect at all as it relates to the true business intelligence within today's contingent workforce management programs. Cognitive intelligence, another cool aspect here. Do we have intelligence that can pull from various sources across our organization and make sort of, AI-level decisions for us or help us gain visibility into things we're not even thinking about. Definitely a core aspect of the best-in-class program. And then finally, before we really quickly run through the recommendations for action, talking about solution adoption. And, there's a reason that VMS and MSP usually always come out on top as the top 1 and 2 solutions here in use. VMS today has just evolved so much from what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 20 years ago. VMS was originally, vendor management system was originally designed as essentially e-procurement for staffing, and it's become, the centralized source of knowledge and truth for contingent workforce management today. I mean, I've even called it really the true nexus of contingent workforce management. Everything from managing requisitions to handling business intelligence and reporting to creating and managing, bidding and SOW-based projects. Implementing, social media, social networks, gamification, all of these very innovative concepts, including innovative talent engagement, are part of today's VMS platforms. And then you see sort of a bunch of other interesting solution platforms here. Online talent platforms, nearly 3 times in use at best-in-class companies than all others. Same thing with freelancer management systems as well. These are newer platforms that are definitely making an impact in the non-employee workforce world today. So before we have about 8 or 9 minutes left, and I really want to take a couple minutes to wrap up before we take some questions from the audience. So I'm going to quickly go through some recommendations I have for all of you today. So the first one is, and again, I've said this probably about a dozen times today, so you probably could have seen this coming from a mile away. Transformative thinking is the key. It's the idea that you're thinking about this in a different way. You're not buried in the past. Your mind's not stuck in 2009 or 2010. Everything that's happening out there is real. It has an impact. And at the executive level, at the business leader level, by transforming just the way you think about your talent and the way the talent comes in and out of your organization is going to go a long way into how you not only survive in the years ahead, but how you thrive in the gig economy. And then second item, embrace the innovation within talent engagement. There's so many new sources of talent out there that organizations are can really be overwhelmed with what they can do. But when you take into account things like online talent or digital staffing or mobile applications or social media or different types of business networks that help you connect your business with the talent you need, by embracing that innovation, you're going to be opening up your world to a new supply chain of talent. And then finally, actually there's 2 more left here. Build a bridge to the future of work. And I know we didn't talk too much about the concept of the future of work, but in the new research report, we put a little bit of a definition, and we even put together a very cool infographic behind it. But the future of work is founded on many principles. It's AI, it's robotics, it's innovation, it's again, transformative thinking is a big part of it. All of these different aspects together go into what's called the future of work. Things like even like hot desking and co-working spaces, the physical items of the office. All of these play a big role in the idea of the future of work. And you don't have to be a big part of it today or embrace all these aspects, but build a bridge to that future of work and start doing things today to get to that level. And finally, understand and embrace the gig economy's impact. And I know some of you just may be sick to death of hearing the phrase, it's on the cover of newspapers, magazines, it's all across the business world. Well, the gig economy is fortunately or unfortunately, whatever way you stand, it's here to stay. It's impacting everything we do from the work perspective. And if you don't, not only understand it, but if you don't embrace it, you're going to be missing out on a whole world of talent. So we're going to pause here and take some questions from the audience from the last few minutes. I'll hand it back over to Dave. And I am going to leave my contact information up. Feel free to visit us. I am always open for conversation, so if there's anything I can do for any of you listening in today, feel free to follow me on Twitter or even shoot me a note via email.
Okay. Great, Chris. Thanks very much. That was a wonderful material. We got just a couple of minutes, so I do want to throw out a couple of questions that we're getting coming in. One of which I'm going to kind of wrap is around technology. So I'm going to kind of take a couple questions and put them together. About the VMS's role and also the FMS role, the number of, you know this, the number of platforms that are either marketplaces or communities of workers is growing by the day. There's probably, last count, over 300 different platforms that were essentially direct-to-talent sources out there. So can you kind of give us sort of unpack the relationship of the VMS, which probably most companies are used to, and then roles of other technologies that enterprise may want to either use the technology or the communities within the technology in those roles? That's a lot to cover, but.
Oh, no, definitely. We'll try my best in the next couple of minutes. So, from a general standpoint, I mean, I think we all know by this point what vendor management system technology is, so I don't think we need to go too much into the background there. But you're starting to see more and more of these, what they're called online talent platforms pop up. And what they are essentially, they're either based on, they're either mobile optimized, whether it's an application or a mobile optimized website. Obviously, too, they also have very traditional websites as well. But they serve the direct purpose of connecting businesses to talent. And if you're a business, some of them offer enterprise accounts, or some of them you pay via project and you give a percentage, you pay a percentage. The workers themselves are also coming into these platforms in the same manner. It's just on the opposite side of the spectrum. And what they're doing is it's helping connect you to talent, and it's listing projects and helping to find talent based on certain algorithms and things like that. There are various online talent platforms, and obviously I don't want to name them here, but various online talent platforms that are maybe for retail, maybe for design, or maybe for higher level consulting work. Various online talent platforms are out there today that are helping businesses connect to talent. And of course, one of the interesting components I think we're going to start to see over the next year or two, them being part of a big part of the ecosystem here, linking that information intelligence back to the core of VMS for a better or more totalized view of the talent you're utilizing. Freelancer management systems, on the other hand, those are more hardline, not necessarily enterprise technology, but they're a little bit more rigorous in the sense of providing things like talent pools and analytics, and they follow more of the enterprise technology platform framework more than, hey, we're just a marketplace, or we're just a connection between you and the talent. So hopefully that helps to eliminate some of the confusion. But again, it's a great question, and again, it certainly reflects what's happening out there in the space. So good question, Dave.
No worries. Here's another question just about the mobilization of talent. So are you seeing an increase in the usage of mobile apps and the technology availability that you mentioned earlier in the webinar becoming an important success factor?
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, for those of you who haven't read the new report yet, definitely take a moment to read it. One of the cooler things we put in there was an infographic around the future of work, and one of the core, I think, 5 or 6 items was mobile optimized work. We can do everything via our smartphones nowadays. I mean, that's sort of a no-brainer. But taking sort of the power of the consumer world, or the personal world, and shoving it into the business world, it's having an impact now, where more and more companies, more and more business leaders and professionals can tap into the power of mobile technology, manage projects, find businesses to work with, and on the business side, again, having applications that connect me, help me self-source or directly source talent, that's going to go a long way in the future. I mean, the big part of the future of work is the idea that I can find talent in an on-demand manner, and guess what? I'm not always behind my laptop, or I'm not always at my office, and smartphones, obviously, and mobile devices and mobility in general are going to play a big role in how companies not only find the talent they need, but how they manage the talent as well.
All right, very good. I think we got time for one more to squeeze in, and this is sort of a good wrap-up question. What do you see as the long-term ramifications? So looking out 5 to 10 years, how do you see, the gig economy affecting overall labor force? Will it continue to rise? Will it take over? What do you see as sort of the long-term effects?
So for the next 5 or 10 years, I mean, I definitely see, there's going to be a long-term impact. I mean, this isn't a business fad. This isn't I mean, I remember 5 years ago, 6 years ago, people were saying, very smart people, hey, yeah, big data, it's just a fad. Well, we're in 2016, we're approaching 2017, and we are firmly in the age of intelligence. So that certainly wasn't a buzzword or a fad or even hype. And it's the same thing with the gig economy. The gig economy really has transformed not only the thinking behind how companies are finding talent, but also the way that very talented individuals are choosing to build their careers. And as more and more, truly smart individuals, talented individuals, business professionals, whether they're millennials or whether they're baby boomers or whatever generation they sit in, they're going to want to share that expertise with the business world. And this entire notion of the gig economy is the catalyst behind that and I think that as we look 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, you're going to see the impact of that come with, just the rise in the utilization of non-employee labor. Today, we're approaching 40%. Next year, could it be 41%? Could it be 45% by 2019? Could we finally see a day where the average company's workforce, or 50% of the average company's workforce, is considered non-employee because of the gig economy, because all of the innovative things happening on the talent engagement side? I mean, that's definitely an exciting future, and the gig economy is a big part of that.
Well, that's a great wrap-up and a great place. Listen, Chris, I'd like to, maybe before we close, just if you could plug Ardent Partners and your research one more time.
Yeah, so definitely visit ardentpartners.com, to check out more information about us. CPOrising.com, I write there, pretty frequently about the space. And if you're interested in the podcast as well, if you visit CPOrising.com today, it's the first article at the top, and I hope you guys, hope everyone in attendance has a chance to listen in every week.
Great. Well, thanks, Chris, and thanks, everybody, for joining today on behalf of DCR Workforce and the folks here. Again, please check us out as well in terms of your VMS technology needs. And thanks again. We'll send out a copy of the slides to everybody that joined today. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.